We will call this meeting of the Hanson Conservation Commission to order. This meeting is now open under the State Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Hanson Local Bylaw, Article 3-13, Section 5. This opening statement will apply to business conducted at this meeting. And as per our standard practice, this meeting is being audio recorded for the record. Roll call, please.
Ed Hill. TJ Roby. David Hanson.
Sharon Laporte.
Phil Clements.
Lon Woodward.
Frank Skellinger.
We have 100% of our commission and staff present, so we will proceed with our agenda. We have scheduled for 7 p.m. a request for determination of applicability relating to 500 Liberty Street. And this would be a new hearing, and so I presume we have a legal notice of the hearing, which our clerk will now read. Is that feasible?
Yes, it is. Let's see. First of all, we have, Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 15, 2023, at 7 p.m. Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to the request for determination of applicability from Michael Bowman, Parcel and Project, proposal to perform excavation test pit for the purpose of soil evaluations, percolation testing within 100 feet of water and vegetated wetland at 500 Liberty Street, map 81/21. Michael Bowman, represented by Mackenzie Engineering Group, 151 Warren Drive, Monroe, Mass. 061. The applicant is filing under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, and rules and regulations, Hanson Conservation Commission, Code of Conduct.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. I presume the applicant is here. Here. And I don't know the names and faces, but if you'd introduce yourself and speak to the project, that would be great.
Certainly. Should I put a plan up or?
That would be great. And put the
Thank you.
information in front of us. You could even turn it, maybe even a little bit more, because maybe some of the attendees would want to see it. Thank you.
Not that great.
Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Al Loomis of Mackenzie Engineering. Here on behalf of the client, Michael Bowman. We're proposing to do a septic repair to the property at 500 Liberty Street. And the existing system is presently in this location under the parking lot, at least for the most part, under the parking lot. So we have some limited prospects in terms of areas in which to put a septic system because of its proximity to the pond. So I show several locations of that we'll probably investigate for the replacement system. And as you can see, it's quite limited between the roadway layout and the existing parking. So we're proposing these test pits here and as an alternative in this location. This may be affected by the presence of an existing pipe of unknown origin, so that may come from this direction, and that would limit us to just this area. So that's why we're here. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
So just for full orientation, lots of us are very familiar with the neighborhood, but we might not have memorized the layout from above here. Is this the big building with the Conway offices in it?
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
just making sure.
Yes.
Years ago, it was a marina and a gas station, but those have been gone for 50 or 60 years. So, so once again, the plan is to utilize the unbuilt front area between the building, the parking lot, and the layout of the streets as they now exist?
Well, yes, and that's the area we're going to investigate. Obviously, we don't know what the soils and the water table are until we open up the test holes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why we kind of wanted to have an alternative area, and this is the least impact on any wetlands or the pond itself, so, that's what we're proposing for a location.
Just curious, you mentioned the unknown pipe. Do you think it might be an old stormwater drainage thing?
It's a drain pipe of some sort, yes.
Which is the sort of thing that's very much out of fashion these days. Drain pipes going straight into ponds,
Yes.
God knows where.
Yeah, I think there's a catch basin out on High Street, so I'm suspecting that it may have been put in many years ago, probably under a handshake agreement, as many of those, issues were resolved at the time.
Have you checked with the highway department to see if they have indications of the drainage system in that low end of High Street there? And
No, we didn't check specifically for that one. We did locate some other, catch basins on the plan, I believe. But, and I'm not sure of the exact location. I know that it's somewhere along this area here, so, it's probably, I'm wondering if it's outside the property line here.
I think it is,
So,
if I'm not mistaken.
far enough up High Street that it, yeah, so it may involve two
Okay.
properties, but that's why we're gonna focus on this area, because it's where the existing septic system is now. We can deal with that. As I say, our options are pretty much limited, so.
yeah. Some people thought the site looked great when the old building was taken down and there wasn't anything there, but obviously that didn't last. We're all for businesses and that sort of thing. Any other questions from the board? And not to rush that, but Ed, go ahead.
How close is this new system, if it is on the right-hand side that you're planning, how close is it to the existing system?
The existing system, so that's only an alternative location there, but we're proposing that here. It's probably difficult to see on your copy, but there's a white dash outline, it's labeled leaching field, that's an existing system.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So, that's based on as-built information. We're not 100% sure of the exact location of that, but I'm sure it's in the area, so. And it would involve, as is often the case, we'd have to remove the old system and dispose of it properly. But we'll be back to see you at the time when we need to.
Has the old system failed, or is this up?
It's my understanding that it failed. This is I think they have money in escrow. I think the property has already been transferred, and that there's money in escrow to do the repair of the system, so,
So this is being considered repair?
yes.
So probably subject to a Title V test based on planned conveyance to a new owner and all that, and this often happens.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any comments from our agent, Dr. Skellinger?
The only reason that I can't give them a blanket permit is because it's a commercial job. Otherwise, the work is outside of the 50-foot buffer. Most of it looks like it'll even be outside the 100-foot buffer if they dig where they say they're going to. So, really, the only impact will be to the right side if they go into that area. It'll be within the 100-foot buffer. I couldn't give them a blanket permit for it, so that's why he's in front of you, and I'd recommend you give him a -3.
So it's not quite as simple as it could be, but it might still be fairly simple. What's this further discussion or any comments from any interested parties in the room? Hearing no such further comments or discussion, Chair would entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination and approve this project as presented and to close the hearing.
So moved.
Victor, you hear a second. Further discussion? Not over yet. Seeing no further discussion, we'll move to the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 5-0-0. Approved, and we wish you well, and you'll be in touch with the office, I'm sure, as necessary, and they'll be watching as necessary. Sure. And we have some papers to sign, I think, for you.
Would you like us to notify you the day we do testing,
You'll be notifying Board of Health and they'll notify you.
Okay.
But I mean, sure.
They may show up in the same inspectional vehicle.
Yeah, yeah. Or we may walk over, who knows?
Any question on this, or?
Just generally to the commission, I don't understand what a -3 approval, is that what you called it? I'm curious.
I'll let our agent explain. When something is, basically, the easy way to describe it is when something doesn't require any further regulation, it's a positive determination, be like, yeah, we gotta do more extensive hearing and oversight. A -3 is like free and clear, not free and clear, but the way forward is clear. Frank, there's probably a better way to describe it than that.
The -3 determination is that even though the Wetlands Protection Act applies, the work is of a nature that it's not going to impact the resource area.
Yeah.
Okay, because it said you were in the 50-foot, the buffer zones and everything was okay there, so that's what I thought.
Yeah, if it was any closer to the pond, it wouldn't be quite so easy, but, they've thought it out pretty carefully, it looks like, so. We wish them well, and we'll find out how it goes.
Thank you for that education.
Yeah, well,
And with the paperwork will come separately,
Okay,
no, this is,
so I'm all set.
so you'll,
All right, thank you very much.
okay.
Thank you, Commissioners.
and here's the signatures, and the office will receive that. Just a few minutes before 7:15, so perhaps there will be enough time, the Ethics Commission to review the minutes from March 1st, and get that passed on. If someone comes in exactly 7:15 and doesn't want to miss the next one. Anyway, if it feels rushed, we can certainly work on the minutes later as well. Always exciting to review minutes.
I have that.
Just reiterate, if we do need more time on the minutes, we can provide them later.
I read them
Okay.
prior.
This is none. Accordingly, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the minutes of March 1st, which are before us, to accept or otherwise proceed.
So moved. Second.
Moved and second to accept the minutes as presented for March 1st. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So 401, minutes are approved. Now, 7:15, we have a new hearing and one of the series, and I would give our clerk a moment to prepare for reading the notice of that hearing. That's the one that ends in 0752.
The Hanson Town Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 15, 2023, at 7:15 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent for Scott Burgess, ATL Construction. Parcel and project proposal to construct a new single-family house, gravel driveway, subsurface sewage disposal system, utilities, site grading, and landscaping in disturbed areas within 50 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at Lot 1A Lakeside Road, map 79, Lot 26-2A, for Scott Burgess, ATL Construction. Represented by Steve Ryan, Land Planning Incorporated, 115 Main Street, Hanson, Mass. 2341. The applicant is filing on the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, National Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 313, Section 5, and the rules and regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission votes on this change.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
would it be useful to open all three hearings at once?
I don't know. Does anyone feel enough like a lawyer to wonder whether there's a question, whether you have three hearings open simultaneously? But since all the parties are the same and the addresses are all adjacent to each other, the chair might get confused what hearing he's talking about, but you'll straighten me out, right? As we proceed with each
We
one.
can certainly proceed one at a time.
Might go over a lot of discuss a lot.
How's your voice?
It's fine, I can hear you.
Okay. Does the applicant or the representative have any feelings about that, or opinions on the feasibility?
I think it might be beneficial to go over all at once, whereas all of the plans are kind of on one conservation plan. And then there's individual plans for each lot for the septic system.
So we could have one overview, show and tell of all three projects, and then proceed as necessary through each one.
Sure.
Shall we open the other two? Oh, go ahead.
We get too far into the weeds here. As a relative of the butter, why excuse myself from consideration of these projects.
So before we proceed any further, let the record show Mr. Roki says he's recusing himself, and we still have 4 seated members. We will proceed with that quorum. Thank you very much. Based on the consensus that I'm hearing and the suggestion that was made, why don't we proceed with the other 2 hearing openings, and then we will have all 3 open simultaneously, and we can have an efficient presentation and discussion.
Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 15, 2023, at 7:30 p.m. Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent for Scott Burgess, ATL Construction, parcel and project, proposal to construct a new single-family house, gravel driveway, subsurface sewage disposal system, utility, site grading, and landscaping of disturbed areas within 50 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands of Lot 2A, Lakeside Drive, map 79, lot 26-2, from Scott Burgess, ATL Construction, represented by Stephen Ryan, Land Planning, 1115 Main Street, Hanson, Mass. 03341. The applicant is filing under the Mass Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, Rules and Regulations, Hanson Conservation Commission. Philip Clemens, Chairman. And last but not least, the Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, March 15, 2023, at 7:45 PM at the Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to a notice of intent to start Verdes ATL Construction. Frontal project, the project to construct a new single-family house, gravel driveway, subsurface sewage, disposal system, utilities, site grading, and landscaping. Disturbed areas within 50 feet bordering vegetated wetlands at Lot 3A, Lakeside Drive, Map 79, Lot 26-2B, for Scott Burgess ATL Construction, represented by Stephen Ryan, Land Planning Incorporated, 1115 Main Street, Hanson, Mass. 02341. The applicant is filing under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Hanson Town and Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, Chapter 313, Section 5, and Rules and Regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission, Philip Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Three hearings are now open. As far as time goes, I'm sure it will extend pretty much through the intervals described, so I'm not worried about anyone coming in for a late hearing. It's pretty much all the same thing. Mr. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Stephen Riley, for the record, was land planning representing Scott Burgess and ATL Construction. I'm going to give you a couple documents that I emailed in today. That's just a variance request that we didn't have in the package, just so you have it. The property we're talking about on Lakeside Road, we've been before the Conservation Commission a couple other times and gotten plans approved for each of these lots. The lot configuration is still the same as it was since 2008. The change in the property is that we've had to reflag the wetlands just to bring them up to current standards. So we had Ken Thompson reflag the wetlands. The site was a former cranberry bog, so we've got 5 bog areas, one partially outside here, a second here, third area, fourth area here, and then the fifth one here. Those bogs were determined at some point in the previous filings to be partially upland bogs and predominantly wetland bogs. And that delineation is still indicated on this plan by this line that goes through these 2 bogs.
Oh.
So on the back side of it, that was created from an upland area, and the front side of it was wetland line. So there's about 12.5 acres, 12.7 acres for these 3 lots, which are lot 1A, 2A, and 3A. Each of them fronting on Lakeside Road. Access to upland area of the property, which is located in the back here, is going to need to be by the existing bog roads so that we avoid wetland disturbance as much as possible. What has changed since they were previously approved is that zoning regulation, I believe, that requires us to have 16-foot wide access for emergency vehicles to be able to get to the back, and also a requirement for a turnaround for a fire department vehicle, so that they can get in and out of the building. So with that in mind, what was previously approved was that each of these would have their own driveway to access the lots. Currently, what we're proposing to do, for the sake of reducing the amount of wetland filling, is to have each of them have a driveway access off of Lakeside Road, one for lot 1A here, 2A beside it, and 3A in this end of the lot 3A. And those driveways will combine after you get onto the property, and we'll be providing an easement through these areas to adequately address who has rights to them. And so that'll be an easement for access and utilities. And the driveway for lot 3 will come down here and combine with these 2 lots out to the back. And by doing that, we reduce the amount of wetland filling that we need to do to make that 16-foot wide access way. We reduce that by about half. So the total amount of wetland filling that's required to get access to the back is 3,300 square feet rather than 6,000 or so. So that's why we come up with this as the most feasible access to the back portion. So when the driveways combine here, they'll also separate once you get to the back, the upland portions. So the driveway will go over this lot 3A here, it'll go over to lot 2A here, and then there's a driveway in front of the, where the dwelling is going to lot 2A, which will give access back to lot 1A. Yeah. And like I say, we want to have common utilities down through there too, so we'd like to put in a 2-inch water line to access that, and then split off of that each of the lots, just as the driveways. And then we'll be doing overhead utilities through placing poles, which you see in red, in different locations near to the driveways. So the wetland areas that were reflagged, each of those 5 lots, in addition to that, there were some isolated wetlands in the back of the property, which are natural wetlands, or appear to be, and have been denoted that way by Ken Thompson. And there's an isolated wetland off-site. I think that probably was not delineated on the original filings way back in 2008, but that has been identified as well. It's off-site, but it does have a buffer zone that goes onto the site. Work for the 3 blocks, there's going to be an existing, there's going to be a proposed house in this location for lot 3A. Lot 2A is going to be here, a house and a detached garage, and then a single family house in the back of lot 1A here. Like I say, the driveways are as I've shown them. This is the side entrance garage for this lot. There's no garage on this lot, but there will be a turnaround at this end. The fire apparatus turnaround will be here. Be able to go back into this area, which is part of the drive, and turn around and go back out. It's the same thing in here for fire apparatus stream down the vehicle, go back into the abutted property, turn around. And so what we're doing, obviously the site is 95% of it is either within a wetland area or within the buffer zone of the wetland. So we've got to do work within the 50-foot no disturb to be able to access these upland areas from the back for construction. Where we are trying to avoid work within the 50-foot buffer zones for these 3 isolated areas, because those are natural areas, and there is some woodland around those areas. So we maintain a buffer zone of 50 foot with no disturbance within that for those 3 areas. And septic systems, they're designed as they were previously. One located here for this property, another one in the back of lot 2. He also wants a pool, so there's a swimming pool noted there. And the septic system for lot 3 is under the driveway here.
Have those been perked, Steve?
I'm sorry?
Have those been perked?
Oh, yeah. It was quite some time ago, before the original filings were done. This one was done later because it was, the lot was changed at one point, around 2008. So we filed these with the Board of Health. I haven't heard back from them yet, but they previously approved twice with the same layout, so I don't expect an issue with that. And then erosion controls, we're providing obviously around the limits of where we're doing work, which is basically around, I guess I should go back. We're proposing replication for the areas we're filling within the wetland. So the wetland filling is 3,300 square feet. We're giving them 1.5 to 1 back. So we're giving 4,950 square feet back. And we're doing that in the areas that are upland areas adjacent to the bogs. And there's 4 locations that are site out along the existing bog road. We know we have to provide a wetland replication plan, and we're going to probably have Ken Thompson put that together for us. But we want to at least get ready and get it all around these. So the access ways are going to be gravel drives. Like I say, each of them 16 foot wide. And then the only other minor details, we've got a little bit of a retaining wall in here for grading purposes. foundation throws all around, there's a 50-foot back here, and around the front of the property where the barns are. He's happy to answer questions you might have, or he can show you
I have
more detail on the
two quick comments as we proceed towards questions. One is, I can see why it was recommended that we have simultaneous hearings on these three. They're,
very interactive.
if Siamese twins is two people linked together, what do you call three? But again, point well made, and I think that it helps the discussion. Second thing is on the driveway. It also reminds me a little bit of a delta of a river. Interesting, to say the least. And I presume, and it's not our jurisdiction, I presume the fire department will want to have some familiarity drills for access training, of like whose house is on fire, that sort of thing, where we turn around. But we've had, with other long driveways, we've had a lot of folks from all sides of the table comment on that, but it seems like you've anticipated all those things. Back to the main subject of what we're talking about here. Again, we're talking about, first of all, you've offered you've entered a request that we grant a variance to allow project to be constructed as designed. So that's on the table. The replication area, the numbers are there, and it seems the numbers are in order. I actually drove by that place today, really, and if it wasn't for this plan, I wouldn't have been able to tell you where houses could go in there, but this explains lots of things. So, that's what plans are for. I do have a question about, if you look at the drawing, on the upper right-hand side, it shows a driveway going in past what is called an existing house. But it's on lot 4A, a lot of it, as opposed to 3A, 2A, or 1A. Is that also another place where an easement either exists or would have to exist?
There is an existing easement there, the lots were created with that easement in mind to provide access to that property.
All right.
Formerly, it was, the easement actually goes from about this corner back to here, and then it connects to the property line over here.
Mm.
And runs along that, so the easement's actually over the entirety of the back portion of it.
But the intention is to utilize only that short section.
So, yeah, the intention originally was that access might be this way to get to lot 3, but that's, it just creates too much of an issue now that we have to provide 16-foot wide driveway, so there's just too much wetland filling involved to do that.
Sure.
So we're going across the easement here and coming back onto the property in this location, and then tying in through the easement from lot 2A to get back to the property.
Again, not up to this commission, but we hope that all parties reach, or the eventual owners reach agreements on how to pay for the snow plowing, since so much is shared and a little bit of it is individual. Move up more to protecting the wetland business. We hope that the snow plowing or other vehicles, whether it be on Amazon or some, stick close to the old roads and not go into cranberry bogs, which vehicles have been known to do in this town. They're not familiar with
To that point, there are a couple of locations that are very narrow, and we're providing retaining guardrails along the edge of the road application. Particularly in here where we're coming this direction, you're gonna be turning up here. It's gonna be one here, and there's gonna be another one in this steep area over this location.
furniture delivery trucks.
I'm sorry?
Any furniture delivery trucks?
I'm sure there will be.
Just
But the good thing about this
can't quite picture them.
property is that ATL Construction is definitely constructing his home that he wants to live. He's been looking for this property. And he wants to do it on lot 2A, and the son is gonna be on lot 1A. So, and then what they do.
So for at least a generation, there should be a lot of good communication there. And again, thinking of traffic and maybe impact if someone doesn't look that, if there's commercial trash pickup, are they gonna roll the barrels down to Lakeside Road? Or maybe no one on Lakeside Road does that, I don't know. I'm serious, there's a lot of traffic on roads now that, and longer driveways just make you wonder
You wouldn't,
where the traffic's gonna be.
but yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's gonna have to come out to the front.
That would be our desire, you don't
I
want
don't
a
know.
track truck trying to.
For ATL Construction, or the construction business, he probably is taking his stuff to work with him and putting it in the dumpster, you know?
Yeah.
Imagine, him and his son.
Well, we'll stay in our lane tonight, so thank you for those comments. Floor is open.
And I have two questions.
Please, go
Are
ahead.
these three house locations the same as they were proposed prior? You mentioned they were both proposed.
These two are, you know, within feet, 10 feet.
Yeah.
This one is exactly the same. This was within 5 feet or so because the dimension changed a little bit. This one is quite a bit larger than the original one was. So the original one was back somewhere in the area where the swimming pool is.
And my other question is, I've never seen a driveway do this, three coming in, merging, and then three coming out. Has anybody ever seen anything?
We have seen at least one other project in town where, not two, but two lots were adjacent and had separate access points from the street, proceeded in, a few hundred feet, and then, for wetland purposes, came together and were immediately side by side, such you couldn't tell there was two. And then beyond that, they diverged again. This doesn't involve anything like a culvert or a bridge or anything. It's, in terms of traffic flow, it's pretty similar. You talk about some system of easements that either exists or is in process, not in our lane, but as people who watch how the town develops, we're interested in, I'm interested in what sort of precedents this might create. It's quite a lot more complex than the other case I just mentioned. So, I don't know. We're in the business of protecting wetlands, though, not deciding where traffic lanes are. I mean, or not deciding about who has access, so let's try to confine, yeah.
I have a question
Sure.
on the advisability of a swimming pool. And I said, what, 2A? Is that an in-ground pool?
Yeah, it's an in-ground pool.
That close to the septic system?
It can be 20 feet off the septic system.
Okay.
And that's-
Obviously,
This you can see the bigger scale, you can see that this is
right.
the house and the garage, and there's the swimming pool with an apron around it, and 20-foot separation to the leaching area.
So it is just about 20 feet away?
It is 20 feet away.
And
Yeah.
there's another depression in the backyard, so okay.
It looks like there's going to be a little, looking at the topographic lines, a little reconfiguration of the topography, and the pool is at least upslope of the septic system, the other kind of pool.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It is being graded up, yeah.
So except for what's needed to do a little filling and some replication, the vegetation in the 5 retired bog cells will remain untouched, is that right? Is that the thought?
Except for what's, yeah, if
Yeah.
you said except for crossings.
Yeah.
And widening for the access. Yes, that's true.
The utilities, you might have said this, my apologies if you did. Are they underground? Will they be underground?
Overhead utilities for, overhead wires.
There'll be overhead wires?
There are utility poles shown,
Okay.
and first, this is one location right off the Hanson Drive. Second here, accessing this house here, and then other house about 3A here, and then this proceeds up
Okay.
to the front on the other plan.
There's, one thing I noticed today going by is, as classic of bogs that aren't being cultivated anymore, the dominant trees coming along are red maple and white pine.
Exactly.
And we know the white pines will get tall, and someday we'll have weather like the last couple of days, and good luck to you wires.
Luckily,
That's not our jurisdiction, though.
luckily, there's still, 15 to 20 feet of stuff down.
But if you were to think, well, let's proactively remove some of those trees, you'd be back to see us, sure. And we might have feelings about that. But nature will do what it will do. Other questions or thoughts from our staff? Oh, wait, we'll get to the audience in a minute, but let's have our agent comment on some things. I know you've made a list of thoughts.
So, have you thought about responding to my comments?
I certainly will do that.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do is to get before the commission, and get all the comments from the commission, as well as, any members of the audience that might have comments, and certainly address those.
Just for the sake of the commissioners.
Sure, just to.
Let me just make a
zip
couple of points. Have you filed with the ZBA?
With the ZBA? No, we haven't filed with the ZBA.
Yes, you do.
I'm saying we have not filed with the ZBA, and that would be a determination from the building inspector as to whether we need to file with the ZBA.
So
The zoning bylaws don't allow common driveways in Hanson, so you will have to file with the ZBA. Also, in front of 3A, on the street side, there are stormwater BMPs.
Yeah, there are, that were put in for the roadway when it was upgraded by the owners
Yes.
back originally.
Is there an easement for that?
So those do have easements, and I will add those to we'll give you a revised plan once we get all the comments in, and get that back to you so you can see it. But we'll add the easement, there's one out in this area, block 3A, there's another easement that goes across the front of this, up to about the.
What is the applicant gonna do about the road?
I think he's gonna need to finish the road, and what, from my knowledge, is that it needs a top coat, I believe.
Yeah,
Are we talking about Lakeside Road?
Lakeside Road.
And
That was
cleaning
a
the-
condition of allowing these lots to be approved as lots, was that Coley would pave the road and put in storm drainage. The storm drainage is gonna have to be cleaned. The road is gonna have to be topped. Before that order of conditions can be closed. And the order of conditions will have to be closed before you build these lots. The other thing that I need to put before the commission is that despite the fact that the 50-foot buffer is going to be disturbed, you haven't given us any mitigation ideas for the fact that we're going to lose some of that buffer. Have you thought about what kind of mitigation you're going to propose?
Well, I think we probably end up doing some plantings. And as to the location of them, whether you prefer to see them in the areas where the front end against the pond, or you prefer to see them in the back? That, I'd like to discuss that with you, how you feel about it.
Yes, something that is on the mind of the commissioners for this and any number of other projects, both current and future, is that when you have a property that's, say, got a lot of vegetation on it already, sort of moving some of that out of the way to make new plantings might not always be the most environmentally sort of beneficial thing if you're trying to balance the equation with the public interest in mind. Therefore, we are holding among our potential tools of working with applicants and sort of a toolbox, if you will, the concept of having plantings occur, but not necessarily on the properties before us, but rather on other conservation or town properties where improvements would be very much appreciated. Things that would, let's say, just one example, we're talking about American chestnut trees, which have been coming back. They've been breeding them so they don't get the disease anymore, or any number of other good tree species. What we're doing is we are finding our way forward such that there's a formula for actual value. We can predict what it would cost and work with applicants and maybe even have an escrow account of ours set up into which an applicant, as one of the conditions perhaps, could make a contribution of agreed upon amount for an agreed upon purpose so that the site need not be over-engineered any further. So, and ideally, engineering, the replication or the mitigation would happen on the site, but if there isn't room or if there's other reasons to do it in another place, we are moving towards being very open to, in fact, sometimes recommending, plantings for mitigation on another site in town, and a couple of applicants have already accepted that and are going forward on that basis. So that's probably gonna be in our discussions.
I think that's a great idea. That's a good way to do it, and I know that some other towns have done that in the past. And this might be a good particular project where there is a lot of vegetation there.
Right, both upland and wetland, yeah.
So I can talk to Scott about that.
Yeah, and what we feel is that actually would, like, simplify the tasks for the applicant and their engineers, in that there would be less, further disturbance of the site itself.
Sure. I agree.
The only other thing that I want to say is that the DEP came through with their own comments when they gave us the number, and I want to be sure that you're aware and that you're going to respond. Because when you respond, we'll have to communicate that to them.
Is it possible to get a, schedule for the completion of that outstanding order?
I can talk to Scott about it.
Sort of hinges on that.
You know what, the case is though that he needs to get approvals
Yeah,
so he can purchase the property.
yeah.
If he's not gonna purchase the property, obviously he's not gonna do any work on the road. So, it's,
So we're at a catch-22 here.
Somebody's got to finish that road.
Get a blink.
condition it in your order of conditions that he's gotta do this before any construction on the property. That's how you get into that.
Yeah.
And just to put it on the record and in my head too here, this DEP document, which is dated a little earlier this month, points out that in 314 Code of Massachusetts Regulation 9.04, dredging, this relates to outstanding resource waters, which are quite nearby in the form of Oldham Pond and contributing aquifers.
No, the wetland itself
And the wetland itself, okay.
is characterized as a bore.
Yes. Dredging in or any activity resulting in any discharge of dredged or fill material to any routes, there's definitions there. In determining thresholds or in conducting evaluations of applications, they've got about a page of comments. So it does seem to me that this is a good opening of the hearing, but there's a lot of things for all parties to both work on and to understand better. So we'll probably be continuing. But we see that DEP is even more interested than they usually are in this project. So their interest is on the record, and we'll all work with that, I'm sure. Comments from people in the room. We'll start here, work our way back.
All right, yes, I'm in a butter, my name is Joseph Faligra, I have button over here on this side. I'm not speaking for my colleagues here who are mostly all butters on that side of Lot A. I have a few questions. First of all, this has been an ongoing situation. You had designed this before, and it didn't fly. When, 2008, you said?
2000, you're saying it didn't fly,
It
meaning it didn't get sold.
did fly.
It didn't get approved.
It did fly, but it didn't
It
happen.
was approved by the Conservation Commission, it was approved by the Board of Health,
But it didn't happen.
and it didn't happen because nobody was interested in it.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. You perked in that time period, but that was a while ago. What's to say that the percolation stays the same? Because my understanding is, the weather's changed, things change, the lay of the land changes. And since I'm a butter, I've seen this land over the last 30 years, and I've seen its growth and what's happened back there, and it is a wetland. And you do have the 50-foot no-build zone and the buffers. And I was wondering how we would submit that mitigation plan and the replication plan. My understanding is you have to submit that wetland replication plan before there's any approval. Is that right? Am I correct? Or?
Yes, we anticipate that being required.
And I'm not against this, but I just want to make sure that this is being done right. because I'm gonna have a house built right there that's sitting facing into my backyard. And, so, and then, again, I'm just looking at a few things. And then the water cable, does that change? And I was told it isn't. But what's to say that, you know, the way that the gradients are gonna be built and all the fill they're gonna bring in to mitigate the wetlands, how is that gonna change the layout of this property, these properties, with regard to water cables? I know the lake is there and there's the runoff seems to go toward the lake, but I wanna have some reassurances that 10 years from now, we're not gonna be having floods on Lakeside Terrace, which is all the abutters over here. So just, if you could hear me out for that. And then, yeah, and the other, so Ted Thompson said you're gonna have a replication plan from him.
If I could piggyback on those thoughts, I was curious, as any cranberry bog has or used to have, there would be likely a hydrologic connection, whether it's natural or artificially pumped one. What are the connections, if any, between the bog cells on this side of Lakeside Road and water bodies or wetlands on the other side of the road? I don't see anything drawn on here. Are there any culverts or canals?
There's one culvert that exists off-site, which is on the Laurie Ranch property.
Far to the left side?
This bog, the bog comes closest to the roadway, there's a culvert there. We can, I think we've got the location shown on another plan, we can add that to this plan.
And
So,
to that, I think the question is about the whole hydrologic scheme for this whole property. What connections are there? And I probably should get out my glasses and
yeah,
clean them up. And there are existing connections which will be maintained, perhaps even improved, between the wetland, between the bog cells.
yeah, so there are connections between each of them.
I see
So
some.
this bog is connected to the middle bog by a culvert here, and then
Mhm.
it'll be extended once we widen the road there.
Yeah, I see.
This bog in the back is connected, I don't think it's shown on here, but we'll add that to the plan. There's a connection to this bog right here to the culvert. This bog in front.
Can you possibly go on that side of the road?
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bog in front is connected to this bog, through this culvert here. And then this kind of main bog that collects water from each of these drains through a culvert here, this initial bog. And then there's a release culvert here that goes across the street.
It seems to me that it's rare to have a project come before us where there's already so many things that look a lot like infiltration basins. I mean, there's places to receive water, and the interest of this commission, even though they're not cultivated or tame wetlands anymore, these are becoming wild wetlands, have them continue to function to the interest of the whole neighborhood, which I think is being asked about here. For me, it would be useful, and I'm not going to suggest a date or anything yet right now, but maybe a sidewalk along the nice old log roads would be useful to understand that, but not going to schedule that tonight. There was another hand or question.
Joe, you done?
Yes, there.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Eric Johnson, butter, next to Joe at 377 Cross Street. Very familiar with it. I've been there 20 years, so very familiar with that. I'll leave it to the professionals as far as what means what, but on the driest of summer days, water in those bogs is running. So you got a snowstorm, a rainstorm, that's running even more. You can hear it run like a battle brook on the driest of days. So my concern is, and now I know you did 16-foot gravel roads, you got a lot of fill to add. I'd say probably 10,000 plus yards. I don't know the number, but you need a lot of fill out there. Where's the fill coming from? And I know the terminology is you give back for the wetlands that you take. Now, I know there's not a lot of room out there. I'm just picturing this, and some of the roads, they get narrower, but they're far from 16 feet. I'm trying to picture where that is going to be made up for the wetlands that you take. And that water, obviously we know the cranberry bogs, the water runs along the edges. So that water is now being pushed. So we do the road, so let's say we just do this road right here, for example, what we're talking about, where it's always running right here. So we build 16 feet out, so let's say we even go 4 and 4, let's say this is 8, okay? Now, the water that's coming here is going to be pushed this way, which I don't know if any butters are here, but that water's going this way, and this water's going this way. So that water's taking a lot of space and pushing that water towards somebody else's house. How is that potentially going to affect abutters or anyone in those areas.
Yeah, so as we described, they're interconnected, so the culverts, as this rate rises, it flows into this block, same with this one here, and same with this block here. Eventually down to the lowest block, and the culvert, if it gets too high.
And what type of fill are you gonna be putting in with that?
So it's gonna be typical gravel fill with the deep roadway.
That's gonna be guaranteed clean gravel, well, I mean, it's been certified, it'll be work, if not
Well,
contaminated or anything like that?
I'm not doing the construction,
Okay.
but the guy that's bringing in it has to bring in adequate material for the job. He's in that business, the road building business, so that's what he does for a living.
Okay. And what are the plans for, buffers? And I'm just talking, I'm down on the bottom left there. And I know there's not a lot of room between my property line and the bogs. What do you talk about buffers pretty much throughout that's gonna affect, if this goes through? What type of buffers will be put in place?
So no build zone in Hanson is 50-foot buffers, am I not correct?
Are we talking about setbacks from property lines?
Yes.
That would be something that we don't control, but
I was talking about the no-build buffer.
The no-build buffer.
No-touch buffer.
Yeah.
Our buffer.
no, Bill, but yes, we, that's our bylaw.
So that's adjacent to the wetland areas.
Okay.
And these natural areas in the back, that's gonna be maintained 50 feet, we're not gonna do anything with that area. Adjacent to the bogs, obviously, we have to roads behind.
Just to be clear, Steve, for the people that live on Lakeside Terrace, there's a 50-foot buffer on their side too. Which that bulb of bog there next to the
Yeah.
first house has a 50-foot buffer on the Lakeside Terrace side as well.
And all, up to this point, all of this buffer is not gonna be disturbed on this one as well. So
What's the total acreage of these three lots altogether, 1A, 1B?
12.7 acres,
I'm sorry?
12.7 acres.
So there's a lot of details that occur there that, whether it's the vegetation or the hydrology or other things, yeah, we'll have to really get into the details on this, I'm sure we can and we will. Anything else at the moment from our other commissioners or staff or any?
Yes, sir. I mean, I have.
Oh, please, go ahead, sir.
So, Dan Grant, Grant, and I'm one of the abutters. I live at 51 Lakeside Terrace, which is this property right here.
Right.
One of the things that worries me initially is obviously we're moving earth, and the floodplain that would be affected by that if in fact this plan goes through. Now, this gentleman here just mentioned that this bog, if it gets overflowed, flows into this bog, which eventually comes down to this bog here, which right abuts my property right here, and then it goes over. So obviously I've got a concern there with some type of floodplain, that's going to change the floodplain. Another question that I have is this, these homes that are going to be built, are they going to be on a well, or are they going to be on city water?
They're gonna be in town.
They're going to be on town water. So now, in town water, you're going to have to, again, dig, remove earth to make space for the piping coming in to supply that water. Pipes break. Most of us have been living in this area for over 30 years. We've seen power outages. We've seen breaks in pipes and stuff that have to be repaired. Erosion's going to take place, so I see that as a future problem, again, coming in to disturb these wetlands. My understanding is this is going to be gravel road.
That's one of our questions too.
Gravel, you know, our weather's not getting better. I mean, we just came through a major storm here, and I've got particular places in my own yard that erode when we have severe storms like this. Gravel is going to absorb moisture, and it is going to erode away. So again, you have these heavy trucks coming in, whether it be UPS trucks or oil trucks coming in with oil. How is that going to disturb? Are those roads going to give out? We have the fire department also has to get their equipment down there. Gravel roads, paved roads, I think, are much better than gravel roads. So I have some real concerns about the gravel roads there, and the deterioration of those gravel roads over the years.
If I may just say on that, one of the bullet points in our agent's communication to Mr. Ivan earlier this month, so gravel drives, which is it? So we seek clarification on that too.
But up to the homes themselves, that gravel or is that paved?
This is our question, we do not know,
Yeah, we're showing that on the plans as being gravel.
Okay.
even
So,
though the narrative in the notice of intent
Gravel
so
roads.
uses the word paved.
paved roads.
Driveway.
I would say, what's that?
It's driveway, right? And we're going,
But we're talking access road from Lakeside Road up to the property is gonna be gravel. And that's why I have
Is that
concern
considered
with it.
Well, everything that goes from the street to the house is a driveway. I'm concerned less about what we call it rather than what it actually is made out of. So I think Dr. Skelton's question stands. I have not studied all the narratives that came with the notice of intent, and I think it would make sense just to do that, just to be sure.
I'm sure we all have the same question.
Yeah,
Will it be gravel or paved? And once we know the answer,
Okay. Mentioned paving of Lakeside Road, I understand that there'll be drains that are put in. Where do those drains, where
They were already,
those
they
drains
were
eventually
already
go?
put in.
Yeah, that's.
The drains are in there.
They're underground, so you don't see them,
And when they flow?
there's, there's catch basins, along the roadway,
Okay.
and those catch it and put it underground in this area, and then again in this area over here.
so they discharge towards these bogs hills?
They do.
Okay.
And then they flow out into Spring Brook across the street.
So they're designed, those systems were designed to handle, the amount of flow coming into it, and infiltrated into the ground based on the soil types that we have on the water table. And then there's an overflow pipe from each of those, which goes into the bottom areas.
And that ties in with a comment I had very much early on, which is, I was quite interested in knowing the mechanism by which water, stormwater, whatever, on the lower, or I guess the west side of Lakeside Road, how it gets to the east side towards Spring Brook, which Dr. Skellinger just mentioned.
There's just one culvert.
And you said you'd put that on there. Yeah, I think it's in all of our interests. There's the water and its flow and the wetlands, I mean, that's what we're all about here, so we'll pay a lot of attention to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in how this is gonna change that, where the water's very invasive, it's gonna seep the lowest level, as everybody knows.
Water and gravity do what they do.
Yeah, and so.
One thing that this project has in its favor is that we're dealing with cranberry bogs, which are themselves low, wet, absorbent, and they will take a lot of water. They undoubtedly took this storm without any trouble at all. And the excess flowed out of that culvert into Spring Brook.
Yeah. I think any of us who have seen water picking or flooding of bogs in the winter for frost protection, et cetera, can vouch for the water capacity that these bogs have. If they didn't have that capacity, they probably would have been abandoned even longer ago than they already were. So there is a sense of, shall we just say, optimism, but we would want to be sure of all those points.
And again, with overhead utilities, they're gonna require repair work, so again, it gets back to access roads to get to these utility poles. And again, it gets back to the whole erosion aspect, whether it's gonna be gravel or if it's gonna be paved gravel. In my opinion, obviously, it's much more susceptible to, erosion than paved. I'll leave it to anybody else.
Well, what we'll do is just make sure you've gone down your list, but make sure we don't miss anyone else either, so.
Yep.
Are you all set for the moment?
Yes.
Okay, sir,
With a
please.
chance for, cross-examination.
Well, the hearing,
Cross-examination if a question.
that's a term we don't use, but the hearing is open, with people speaking, we hear. Go ahead, sir.
Ron Crook, Lakeside Terrace. My first point is, I was not notified. I was not on this abutters list, and I don't understand why Two of my neighbors got this information, and I was not get it. I'm at 66.
66 Lakeside Terrace?
Yeah.
You're across the street.
Next to the church.
Yeah, he abuts
All-
me, so he
All
was,
of Lakeside Drive would probably not have been notified because we notified 100 feet from the property line.
That's the
So if you're
requirement.
beyond 100 feet from the property line, you wouldn't have gotten a notice.
The
this
project
property
property
this
line.
property line, like lot one
This
A.
property line.
But the point is, it's in the paper and neighbors communicate, that's great, so we're glad you're here. Go ahead.
My question is, when our houses were built, there was moratorium on water. All of the houses built in that subdivision, Lakeside Terrace, were put on wells. Most of those wells are still existing. How is that going to be protected, and how's that going to be affected by these additions?
That speaks to, I hate to sound like a passionate, but, water department and board of health things. One thing we hear though, if these are receiving town water, that means these new houses would not be drawing on the water table, so they wouldn't be, taking water from the same aquifer that everyone else already is taking it from.
Yeah, but
That's what we hear. That's,
now there's the addition of quite a substantial amount of driveway. There's going to be salt on those roads in the wintertime. There's going to be fertilizer put on their lawns. All of that goes down into the ground, which goes into my water supply.
we hear you. Salt on roads, fertilizer, this is the sort of thing that's on a lot of people's minds.
Are there enough restrictions also on fertilizer use within buffer zones anyway?
The other, just a little point on the layman.
I understand
I
what you're
only
saying.
understand certain aspects of these drawings, but I received this in the mail. Again, this is just my opinion. I see 2A and 3A. I'm thinking these houses are being built up there, and they're all the way back here.
Mhm.
To me, this plan is not very, easily read by the average person. So, that's just, thank you.
Well, now that these plans have been submitted, they're in the public record. If someone wanted to come in or bring someone else in to help, they're available in the conservation office. If that's,
Come in, we can talk.
yeah. This doesn't have to be the only place we look at and we talk about, but this is the place where the board would take official action or so on. But
Yeah, and the comment about, the 100 feet and why I wasn't notified, I have a storm drain in my driveway that fills up in heavy, heavy rain. This is obviously gonna raise my, storm drain level as well.
is it a drain from Lakeside Terrace or a drain from,
It's just a gravel pit
oh, on your property?
on my property.
Oh.
But it has a water level, and then now this addition is gonna raise that water level as well. So that when these heavy rains come, I'm gonna have additional flooding in my own driveway.
Yeah, hard to make an account that since your property isn't shown on here, but, we appreciate your thoughts, and again, the plans are gonna be available for quite a while, I think.
I can say to.
Steve, please.
That, the subdivision, Lakeside Terrace is called, is uphill from where we're at here. So we have considerably higher than the bog areas here.
It would,
Water.
it would almost take a biblical water back up for them to be affected by it, but we'll see, we'll look at it.
My concern is, there's obviously water level even under my property. That with the addition of what we're saying there, the water level, I'm anticipating, again, I'm not an engineer, that my water level is gonna rise as well.
Joe?
Yeah, Mr. Clemens, thank you, Joe Bliger again. I'm just curious, because the grade, when you finish your construction, the gradient and where the properties are the houses are gonna be located, are those higher? Obviously, they look like they're gonna be higher. Your septic systems, are they gonna be?
Yeah, so the septic systems have to be a certain height above
Right,
the
yeah.
groundwater table, which they're designed to be.
So the houses are gonna be raised, you're gonna be.
So the houses are raised too, because you're gonna get them up above where the water table is as well.
Sure, that's understandable.
Generally, they're a couple feet above where the water.
So then you're bringing in that to build up that area, so you're gonna have higher levels there, so you can make sure you have your septic system properly done.
Yes.
So then that actually, hopefully that actually helps with the runoff, I would think, but I'm not sure. So my question with that is, the gradient, again, the gradient and all the culverts and everything, you're significantly moving a lot of land around here. And I'm just, wanting to know about how that's gonna impact the wetlands and how it's gonna, it's the engineering feat, quite frankly, because of all the water going in different directions. So that probably goes back to the replication plan.
Yes, as you indicated, here, these bogs involve a tremendous amount of water. I think the water is probably the least of any issues you're gonna get from
Okay.
this project. Based on the fact that it's a lot lower than you are, the bog well has quite a bit of volume to hold, and it goes out across the street, rather than up towards you.
Okay, these are just questions I have. I was actually on the Board of Health, so I know, for years I've been watching all these stuff, but I just wanted to make sure, understanding how you're gonna come in here and develop this.
I think, by the way, for the record, besides reporting, we're catching all these comments in the minutes of the meeting. So in addition to the comments and questions that Dr. Skellinger has put together, there will probably be some more, and there'll be a lot of discussion of these in the very, very near future.
And I understand about the, from Framingham, I understand about, the bogs being able to withstand a lot of water, but, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, the gentleman mentioned earlier that, those water in those bog areas right now are constantly flowing, and with the amount of rain we had, a week ago, it was quite heavy.
Well, we're all about wetlands, and one of the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act is flood control, which means the ability to absorb and then safely eliminate water. So we're with you on those concerns. Sir, you had a question?
I did. John Rockwell, website first, between the grants and the religious, I'm not gonna steal long about it. Steve, there's no hydrants on this, we even proposed the hydrants of those three houses there, but if, and the water's coming in from the town, is there an easement, utility easement coming in? Because I was just questioning when they talked about the pine trees, when they do fall, why would you not come in underground with all the utilities, including if we had to add that because of the lack of, the builder's vision on our own street, the shortcoming was you just didn't come down the cable, it's ridiculous, it was like, you had it like this far under the grade, it's like, you gotta be held accountable, not gonna drop off of the boulder, it should be noted there too, they need water supply, so that they can't lay a line all the way coming in here, so they need a hydrant. Larry didn't want to put hydrants on the lakeside terrace. He needed to. We're not going to, this was like 35 years ago. They held his feet to the fire and said, yeah, so we put 2 hydrants in. Hopefully we never have to use them, but my only thought is, why didn't they come in underground with the utilities, they can forego all the utility poles and all the servers coming in the air for looking at either.
Yeah,
It's a pretty wonderful thing on the terrace, because we don't lose power like everybody else does because of our cable's underground, so. He's gonna be making a probably good amount of money on these houses here.
He's building them for himself and his son, so he's not building them to sell.
So,
Yeah.
it's gonna be all that. It's probably gonna be all that,
Yeah, so,
like today, in 2020.
discussion's still open between us as to whether he wants to come underground or overhead. So, that was
Is it an easement?
something we can talk about. It's gonna be, it's gonna be.
The driveway coming in? So it is an easement after all, it is, right?
We're gonna create an easement for this driveway.
He's bringing in water underground, he's gonna have to bring the fire underground, that's underground. So, why would you continue with the utilities? And furthermore, is there any way we can get him to bring gas down Lakeside Road?
Okay, just to,
Gas, the actual gas, I know it's controversial.
You've been begging for that for
There wasn't
decades.
But could we please bring that
water.
oil trucks, propane
excuse me, I don't have a gavel, but I do need to make sure we make control. Great questions, but the point is, we, as a commission, we have to make sure we try to stick to what's our jurisdiction and what isn't, but we share everyone's interest in everything. It's a small town, that's great.
So one more quick
Sure,
question.
please go ahead.
The size of, I mean, this guy's a builder, and he's building for himself and his family, the size of the actual physical homes, is that being considered and taken into account?
It's on the drawings. They're on the plans.
For,
Yeah, they're on this plan.
When you say take into account,
Well, I mean, obviously, as you said, you had to bring in more dirt to bring the houses up.
Yeah.
So again, that's gonna, to me, is gonna push down. It's gonna take that much more of the, you know, wetland that these bogs can take all this water.
It remains to be seen. Typically, people bring in gravel, and gravel, when it's piled up on the top of itself, even a very high distance, is still gravel with spaces in between. The water flows very nicely through gravel compared to, let's say, clay or stone. Everyone's interested in what the topography would look like because of runoff and many other reasons. But the drawings, as we see them in front of us here, do show where new fill would be brought in, and as was said a little bit earlier, there are standards that would have to be set and adhered to, because whoever's paying for it needs the standards to be, and the product to be good. I would be less worried about compressing the soil than simply having the slopes and the revegetation of the slopes and all these many, many other details work out well. It's, again, most of the things we've talked about are going to continue to be talked about, clarified. I think that our list of 8 or 9 comments here is going to grow, but also the point of making sure it's truly feasible for our compliance with our wetlands protection regulations, town and state, and certainly other considerations like Board of Health and zoning board of appeals for shared driveways. Probably not your last meeting, Steve, right?
No, I didn't expect it would be. That's why we wanted to gather this information up front and just kind of try to address it all.
I'm glad everyone's.
Did you say Lakeside Road is going to be paved?
Lakeside Road is paved. I think they
No way.
follow a top coat.
But only to this section, only to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, not all the way beyond. I drove the length of it today, and yeah, I saw where it stopped. We, again, like many other things, we're interested in those sorts of things because a road paving project also would be like close to wetlands and things. And what I've heard earlier, and I hope I'm not wrong, is that road upgrade so as to bring the current road into compliance with what a town road would be expected to have, basically. That's would have to happen before any of this work.
So what's happened already is that there was a washboard gravel road, if you remember, 15, 20 years ago, it was horrible to drive down. They were required to improve that roadway to provide this access frontage
Sure.
to their lots. So they've done that, they put the drainage in, they extended the water, I believe, they put in other utilities in addition to drainage. And then they paved the top coat of it, and then I believe it has to run on the side. So I think it's just that, I mean, not the top coat, they paved the base coat,
Find it.
which is the first time they covered the pavement. And now they, from my knowledge, is that they need to go back to the top coat and clean the drainage systems.
Well, the things that we care about are, number one, things being done in the proper order, review of all the boards in town, but also, secondly, how it affects the water, both the way it runs now and the way it will run in the future. And sure, every single one of these things will come up again as we continue and
I just have one
deal
more
with it.
question, if I may.
Sure, Mr. Grant, go ahead.
Again, Dan Grant from Lakeside Jersey. Who actually owns the owner of the property? What's their name?
It's Laurie Munn.
I'm sorry?
Laurie Munn, formerly Laurie Munn.
Oh, okay. So the property hasn't been sold yet, is that correct?
That's right, yeah. He's got a purchase and sale, it's called purchase, has a purchase and sale on the property.
So it's
Provided that he does all
yeah. So it's the same owner that has been there for years and years forward.
This is installed contingent on it. And again, this has been redeveloped and redesigned for many years, and we've been trying to get this out there, and we understand that. And we're not against it, we're just trying to make sure everything's done correctly.
Yeah.
And for the sake of wetlands and everything else. So I guess it's just kind of getting an understanding of it.
I think what we've
It's very well explained. Thank you very much.
what we've seen over the last decade or so is lots of things that were thought of and conceived and even a little bit started in the first decade of the 2000s. Things happened, like the recession happened, and then lately some other things have happened, but but we're riding those waves and we're working with people. There's a lot of information here, of things that were done back like 2008, but moving into today, there's drawings and things that have been done in 2020, 2023, right here. I think the updates and the double checkings are nowhere near done, and we'll be watching our part of that. I'm sure as the other boards will too. I don't want to cut anything short, but I don't want to forget before people go or anything that we will be setting a based on compliance or with the agreement of the applicant and their representatives, continuing the hearing to a date, time certain, of a date and time that's of your choosing. We have our calendars more or less in front of us here on this table, and there's the next meeting we have is a little bit busy, right?
April 5th.
April 5th, we have there's a 7 p.m. hearing, and an 8 p.m. hearing already set. The 7 p.m. hearing could be a little bit lengthy. We've had a lot of attendees for those meetings, so there might be a question of whether we could fit it in at 7:45. I'd hesitate to schedule as late as 8:15 because it's hard to predict. But also, April 5th is pretty soon. April 19th is quite wide open.
Yeah, actually, April 5th, I'm probably gonna be away for a little bit, so
Okay.
that would be better for me if it was the 19th.
So we'd celebrate Patriots Day by having a hearing that night, and you would get first dibs at what time. It could be like 7 p.m., you know.
Yes, so that's fine. Great.
Before we actually take that step to continue, sir, please.
One last quick question. What size culverts are you putting in? Do you have you determined yet, when you're
What
putting
size culverts, we're not
culverts, when you're putting
adding any culverts, we're just extending the existing culverts. So
You can
what's there
put
now
an
is,
additional culvert onto the existing one somehow tying in with it to extend the
Well-
roadway?
we were widening the roadway, that's why we need to extend the culverts onto roadways, widen the driveway.
Yeah, this drawing right here refers to an existing 24-inch, says CMP, concrete,
Corrugated metal pipe.
corrugated metal pipe.
Okay.
Hopefully that's still have a good long service life ahead of it. Corrugated.
If there's a problem with any of them, they can be replaced.
Sure. All right. So 24-inch at least at that point. Is there anything else to discuss before we think about continuing looking over?
If a decision, a final decision is made, are the abutters notified via mail? Or-
Well, the hearing will be open, and you can, through your attendance here now or checking our minutes, you can see when it will be next picked up. It won't be closed until lots of other things have been discussed and decided among all parties. Whatever is done will become public record, but as we make it, as we create the record, you're welcome to be here. That's why we've moved our things down to this room, the little room upstairs. I'm sure we'll be getting it up for.
It just on your website, it will have, be identified as the on Lakeside Road.
Well, we always publish our agendas, and they're published both physically on the walls of the inside and outside this building, and they are online. We have a section of the website, and you can always check our agendas there. And we have to publish them at least 2, and we usually aim for a few more business days before the actual date. So, for example, for tonight, we had to publish everything last Thursday, I think it was. So, yeah. Civics 101, I wish the kids all knew it. But let's say that we are hearing from the applicant a desire to continue to our meeting of April 19th at 7 p.m. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, that's right.
I would be entertaining a motion to continue this hearing to April 19th at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Well, the abstaining one is outside, so, 4-0-1, although I'm not sure if you just want to go. Good. Thank you for all the information, Steve, and thank you also for the suggestion to one hearing. Probably goes without saying, all three hearings are continued.
Yeah.
Folks, thanks for coming. Next on our agenda says appointments, none, that's easy. Then there's discussions when we're ready to hear a little bit.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yep. I can tell you about Camp Kawani, which includes Cranberry Cove.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The, Frank Malisi, chair of the Camp Kawani Committee, was at the last Community Preservation Committee, meeting, which I was also at. And, there had been discussion between the agent and myself about how things were going, if they were going at all, with the stormwater management for the cove, because that, to us, has to come first. And Frank actually reached out to Mr. Chesia and found out, along with explanation, why there hadn't been really any work done on that yet, even though everything's all accepted to, yes, we will work together on this. We were concerned, and now that hearing is continuing, we know Mr. Rolfield's returned. We were concerned that the cart of landscape planning and playground planning, et cetera, was getting ahead of the horse being the stormwater plan. Fast forward to the CPC meeting, we had extensive discussion, and to my satisfaction, Mr. Malisi explained he understood completely, and this committee understands completely, that their work can't happen until after the stormwater plan is designed and factored into the plans. The other members of the Community Preservation Committee were of the same mind, and that was reassuring to me. I had been concerned. On the basis of that concern being relieved, what we heard was that committee, Ms. Lucy, they were in front of CPC specifically to ask for money to do these things. Well, we all know how long it takes to get money set aside, and because some of it's community preservation money, we had to have the meeting. We did go ahead, and I even seconded the motion to approve his application, but it was written into the motion and everything else, the requirement that the work not happen until after the stormwater part is complete. So the way we look at it is the horse might look like it's behind the cart, but it isn't really. What we're doing is we're taking the cart and we're putting the wheels on it, which is the money. So it's going to be fine. Long story short is they've got a lot more planning to do. And we made it very clear to them that sketches such as we've received so far, they have their place, but we need engineering drawings. And Frank, I don't know if there's any further updates from John Chesia about his schedule, but he confirmed that he was in the game.
In the game, his surveyor is supposed to be going out within the next short time.
Right.
And then he's coming back from vacation in a week, and we'll move to start the design process at that point.
So one of the holdups was that the surveyor that Mr. Chesia used was, who knows whether it was the bug or something else, was just not available earlier this year. So that's a main reason for not having started already. So we shall see about that, and we felt a little better afterwards. Property management update. I'm sure there's things to say.
We have quite a bit, actually, on that agenda. As far as update goes, we put 6 log bridges and 3 stream crossings in on Four Meadow Brook last Saturday with 9 volunteers, including myself and Chris. Went very well. People showed up before it rained, and we got it done by 11 o'clock.
So it was a great decision to postpone our site visit to Home Street.
I color-coded everything, and
We were done by 11.
yes,
Went through that.
everything was pre-cut. And,
So would say you work like beavers?
We had many cooks.
it was great. Mike Jones came over. I pre-cut everything. Mike Jones came over to my place Friday afternoon. We loaded both pickups, and everything was done on time wonderfully. And everyone there, as well as a few other people now, have expressed interest in being on a call list for upcoming projects. And Lon's working on it pretty much together.
Yeah. And to that point, in the packet, there's information about this, but the waiver forms, waivers of liability, I think very much urge every commissioner, whether we plan to be out in the field or not, to sign theirs. This basically, as it says, and this has been vetted by town council, it's designed by the same thing the Wildlands Trust uses for all their volunteer work. One essentially does release forever the ability to sue the town if you take the position that the town made you get hurt. One's judgment is what's called for it. If you think you get hurt, then stop volunteering, don't do it.
Lon, could you run off a package of copies of this for me?
Yes, sure.
That will happen because, again, this several years ago, we came up with this, and then we had the bug and everyone stopped volunteering.
Yeah.
But what we'll have Lon do is set up both a physical file and I think a scanned-in file, so we have it electronically. And this way, we can accommodate any number of people who come in on future projects, and we're doing it right, and there's way less risk than there otherwise would be to the town.
So we're gonna have these people that call us fill them out ahead of time, is that correct, Lon?
It ought to happen.
So that we have them on file?
Yeah, then we'll have them on file.
Okay.
And are you
Right.
suggesting we fill them out also?
Yeah,
I
Phil
think
said
so.
it'd be good.
I think this sets a good example for the rest of the
Oh,
town.
definitely.
Okay, so there's that. We did the usual trash pickup, we wasn't any exception to that. I still haven't talked to the Board of Health yet about the tire disposal issue. Last Sunday, I met with John and Nick Locke about a proposal,
Boy Scout.
a Boy Scout proposal to do a, they're calling it a board walk. For technical reasons related to the Boy Scouts.
Okay,
But it's actually a 10-foot block bridge.
okay.
It's a simple project, it's just one 10-foot bridge. I went over it with them. There's another one that Ed and I built in there last year. It's right near it, and so they have a model. We discussed and use it out there. They're going to provide the materials. I have a little bit of extra material I'm going to give them. Other than that, they're going to finance it. And they're, when are they supposed to come to see us? April?
April 5th
Our
at
next
8.
meeting will be here at 8 p.m.
He's going to make his proposition.
Yeah,
to us.
I know Mr. John Locke is one of the adult leaders of Troop 34, which I'm associated with, and his son Nick is the scout who is doing the project. And based on a little bit of extra communication, I needed to know, where is it in town forest? And I think they'll be well served, and there'll be one less thing for us to do.
It turns out that's the place that most needs are.
Good.
Going forward, town forest, we still haven't built the bridge over the stream. Chris and I are planning to do that. Chris, I think he's found a source of some material. I don't know what it is or if we can use it. But to that end, I have $211 left from the $1,500 that we allocated, and I'll need some more for this bridge if I build it as a design. I'm going to propose that we take the $250 that Mary Ann has donated to us and add that to $211 we have left. I'm sure it won't take more than that $460. $460. I'm sure it won't take more than that. I built a similar one at the Stone Bridge, and it cost me about $350 without rails. This one might be. Anyway, that's enough of a budget. It's okay to do that. I have a couple of money-related things. Let me go through them and we can decide.
Sure.
Separate them and put them together. Phil and I met with Scott Johnson about clearing the meadows, and we set up a not to exceed $10,000 on it. But we don't need to vote conservation funds for that. Is that correct?
Are you asking, will our grant cover that?
Well, because if it won't, then we need to vote conservation funds because he's been told to go ahead with it.
Yeah. Why don't we vote to enable use of conservation funds, but only if we find that the grant funds cannot properly be used for that.
Okay, so let's.
The grant is still very much open. In fact, we've got to give a report to the state sometime this month. And there's any number of other things to do, like on the boardwalk and the stairs at the far end.
Correct.
But part of that is CPC money, part of it is state grant, and if either of those sources, either of both those sources can cover it, then we won't need to expend this. But for the purpose of timeliness, I think I would entertain a vote.
Well, can I finish it?
Sure,
Because
please.
there's more to it.
Oh, please.
Scott Johnson, not to exceed 10,000, clear 3. I think you can pretty much do it, 3 meters. We have the quote from Dan Dell for the stairs, $5,300.
Yep.
And he's good to go on that at any time. I can't really get a specific quote for the boulders down at Smitty's because it's a little bit subjective, but I have a not to exceed $3,000 number on that.
When you say boulders, just so people know, much of the road that goes in from the street to the pond has been made wider than it's supposed to be. We only have a right to a certain 20 or someplace slightly wider foot right of way. The rest of it is all under the federal USDA deed, and we're not supposed to trespass with vehicles. So, for many reasons, it makes great sense, we think, to confine the driveway area, the road area, to that 20 or 25 foot section. And we have just been short of boulders. We've had a lot of vehicular trespass, if you will, because we haven't had enough boulders. Dan Dell does have them.
So he's good to go on that as well. So that's enough to exceed 3,000. We have the actual number on the stairs, and if we add the $250 from Mary Ann to what we need to try to fund, it comes to $18,550. So I don't know if we need to break these into 4 separate votes, or whether we can vote to spend that money for these 4 projects, if you will, or I don't want to deal with it.
Why don't we say this is a proposed spending plan for that amount of money for these 3 purposes?
Well, 4 really. Yeah.
4. Okay. And
Let me just ask a question. Your not to exceed $10,000 may cross the threshold of what you need to get close.
That's why it's not.
maybe 9,999.
Well, we could say not to exceed, yeah, I mean, it doesn't, yeah, we don't have to put it in bid, so that's why we came up with the 10 grand, but, for technical reasons, we could shorten that by a couple of dollars, sure. I don't think it's gonna matter to Scott.
No, it won't matter to him, but it'll matter to Lisa Green.
No, I know, that's what I mean, so, if you wanna make it 9,990, that works, we can take $10 off the whole amount. And what I'm saying is, I don't think Scott's gonna balk at the project, if it's something we're gonna knock $10 off.
So we have the next round of bog bridges, we have the Scott Johnson land clearing, we have the Daniel boulders, and the stairs from also from Dandel.
So we can do all of that for less than $18,540, or not any more than.
So it's not to exceed 3,000 inches.
Right.
It's not to exceed 10,000.
Or 9,990.
10,000. Right. This puts us at 13,000. The quote from Dandel is for 5,800.
Oh, 58, I'm my mistake. I wrote 56.
So now we're
Yes.
we're at $19,251 minus whatever we knock off Scott.
Well, I said 10, so 249. Yeah. That's my mistake.
How much money is left in the account? We spent, 11,000 on the sleepers?
No, we spent 7 and change. The rest of that will come from a CPC article.
As of February 27th, Conservation Fund.
As of a few weeks ago, on February 27th, Conservation Fund had $32,181.30.
One of the reasons I would urge us to go with this is that we want to demonstrate using the money that we have, because they're asking for more at the town meeting. We haven't used what they gave us in the fall, it's gonna be a tough sell, that's for another $40,000.
And also to that point, every single one of these projects has been ongoing, or other elements have been ongoing for quite a while, and they frankly need to be finished if we're gonna be successful in meeting both our own and the public's expectations. So,
I mean, I
there's
agree
no,
with Dave, we should do it, I just wanted to make sure.
yeah, the math is working.
We're only here in the middle of March, it's gonna be June by the time we get any money from the meeting, I didn't wanna be broke for the next
Right.
6 months.
But if we spend 19 now, and there's 32 there, it sounds like there's about roughly 13K, which we'll probably still chip into a little bit more from
Well,
other things.
remember, we still don't have an answer on the AMC project, where that might be coming from.
Which AMC project?
The boardwalk through the swamp up there.
You mean across the river?
Boardwalk at the end of the meadows.
Oh, that, yes, correct. That, we know that the crew would cost about 7,000. But yeah, we don't know the total cost of the Bonnie Hill, Trail boardwalk.
But we do know it's going to cost over $12,000.
So we will probably be right close to spending it down to nothing,
But,
which actually is a good plan.
well, it is, but what's the story on the grant money? Where is that, where is it, where's it coming
Let's be clear, we have a state grant
from? Yeah.
that was for $100,000, and there's still a lot of that left. We haven't done a complete accounting, but we have not exceeded what we expected to.
Okay, so there's money there.
Yes,
Yeah, okay, so we have enough between our account and what's left in that to do this and that project.
plus the Bonnie Hill Trail Boardwalk, the Southeast Mass chapter of the AMC. This is not the trail building people, this is the people who belong to the chapter, and this is part of the state, want to contribute a couple of $1,000s towards it.
So I guess, so we do have enough money.
Yes.
Even on top of it, so.
It's going to look like a pretty nicely balanced set of books, I think, from that.
Well-
It's really important that you get together with me and set all this down, because at some point, we're gonna have to go to the finance committee and explain why we want $40,000.
Sure.
And I'm gonna have to give them a plan for 2024.
And may I suggest that the dollar amounts we had here, and I think we're talking right now about $19,241. That's, for
I
this
got
whole
to
project.
take this up.
Yeah, I think that's essential, and I would urge, capital U, urge, that discussion to happen, by like the 1st of April, because if we're going to be ready for town meeting in May, April is our only month to have any chance of meeting with the finance committee and putting our persuasion to their.
Frank, do you have any details from the finance committee about when?
Not a peep, not a peep, and it's getting to the point where we absolutely need some answer from them, because what's gonna happen is, they're gonna come up against it and they're gonna just say, no, we can't have this. We can't add 40,000 to the budget,
So let's,
and they won't even talk to us.
so let's prepare our application, let's prepare our homework, let's just say, and,
So what I'm gonna do, which might help, what you're saying is, I'm chasing Scott and Dan around anyway, and starting things. And after this vote, I get more leverage.
yes,
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask them both to give me something on a letterhead that says not to exceed 9990 and not to exceed 3. So you actually have something on their letterhead.
right, it isn't just us making up numbers out of the sky.
So, my next talk with those two gentlemen would be that I need something on a letterhead. We have the quote on the stairs.
Yeah, so they have proposed something verbally, we like that you brought it here, we're voting tonight, I believe, to approve it, and then their part will just be to put it
I
out.
was actually up with Dan Dell this afternoon, I thought I might catch him, so I was trying to get something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way they can have authorized signature on it, and so, legit.
In order to be efficient with our time, it's already 1:45. What if the chair were to invite a motion and second and the vote to approve proceeding with these 4 projects or sub-projects for the dollar amounts just discussed, totaling $19,241? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Just for the sake of clarity, these projects are being funded by conservation, full stop, correct? the grant money applies to the boardwalk?
It applies to, Bonnie Hill Trail projects, separate from this.
Well, depends on how much the money.
Well, let me rephrase this. Actually,
The Meadows could come out of
the Meadows could come out.
if there's
And the motion, which I believe I heard and was seconded, would be,
To supplement grant funds
To-
up to,
to supplement grant funds up to this amount. And, if we can spend less than this and succeed on these projects, great, thanks to grant fund availability.
the only, well, let's vote on this first, I got one more question.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Okay, my other question is, we still have enough money in the USDA account for the cedar trees, right?
Among the weighted, yes.
That's all, we don't have to move on that, except for
Right.
guess them,
We have to guess them.
right? But we don't have to vote the money, that's.
Nope, correct.
So, so progress is being made on all these things, and we're starting to develop the volunteers, so, good stuff there.
Thank you for all the volunteer coordination.
Oh, actually, I've already spoken to some of them about starting to clear boardwalk site up at Bonnie Hill House.
Yes,
And they're already willing to.
and by the way, let's carefully track those hours.
Okay, well,
If someone if you have, let's say, a 3-hour project, and there's 6 people there, that's 18 hours, we need to document that because every one of those hours is worth $27 towards our match for the state grant.
okay. My hours don't matter though, right?
Actually, you're a volunteer.
Yes, they do,
They do count.
matter, absolutely.
I started keeping hours way back,
Well,
and I thought.
No, you are a volunteer, your hours count. You're not a paid town employee, so your hours count.
I'll go back to track.
Ed, you had a question?
no, I was just saying that I was thinking,
Yes, we are volunteers too, heaven knows.
how are we gonna track those?
They write them down, and the office will document that. I can work with you guys on that.
Yeah.
Because we need to keep a running tally.
Okay.
I've got a few myself.
All right, I'll go back to doing it. I started it, then I
Yeah.
got the impression.
If we put in for less hours, we actually do, so be it. I mean, that's better than the other way around.
That's okay, I'm
You
sorry.
still have to come up with $30,000 in the end, no matter what, right?
Well, we did because TPC gave us that much for a monument. But we can lessen the ask of, let me just say this. It can only help to track our hours. It's not going to submit a bill for them, but we can track them, and if we need them to fill in, let's say the project cost $134,000 instead of $131,000. The hours of labor that were probably represented by the extra $3,000 will be our hours of labor. There's an Excel spreadsheet of project budget that I put together about 2.5 years ago, and there's a space in it for where you account for all the different things, including volunteer hours. The bottom line project cost was estimated to be $131. That was the plan.
Well, and speaking of that, there's another cost factor, fairly large one, and that's for the signage up there. It'd be nice to get that kind of somehow.
Let's not forget that. Let me do this. You guys are doing a lot of field work. Let me try to finalize once and for all in the next week or so the sign wording, and we can make sure we know exactly what that piece of the budget looks like and proceed with it. I've gotten feedback from the High Street Park Committee, and basically, their thoughts were not specific. They weren't in a design the exact sign mode, but I know what their will and interests are. I combine that with what we
But
want.
you have what I get you all the
Yes,
time, right?
yes.
We know how many and where they go.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a matter of really finalizing that.
The numbers I put in there for that were based on the signage from the company that did the Roger Run.
Right. We very much like that technology and that provider.
Okay, so I don't want to use up too much time, but
Oh, please.
important stuff is.
You're right, a lot of money.
You know, sometimes when you do work, that takes less money. What else?
Yeah. That's it, Fred,
Okay.
that's enough.
We spoke about trees, Atlantic white cedar trees. May I say, the 4 American chestnut seeds that were funded by a project down in Main Street, they arrived in the office. And
How do they look?
they're very small. There's 2 pairs of seeds, there's 2 plastic bags. They're in my refrigerator at home because storing them in the 30s is the best way to do it until you're ready to plant them, which I will do soon.
Yeah, you better plant them soon, because you're not outgrowing your refrigerator.
They're being stored per protocol. But we'll put them, each seed will have its own pot. Each seed will have its own pot to be started and really become a seedling. And the American Chestnut Foundation has very, very specific guidance on how to manage the seeds. That's what we're doing. Each of the bags they really track the genetics of these things more than we ever dreamed. One bag has 2 seeds from a particular tree. The other bag has 2 seeds from a different tree. And they've got names and numbers. And we'll keep track of which seed goes where. But the thinking is right now, what do we have?
The bag.
Oh, yeah. Here's a picture of plastic bags with labels on them.
Picture of the box.
We were expecting potted plants?
No, we're expecting seeds.
Oh, okay.
And so we receive seeds.
I think we buy the cedar trees are already seed ready.
Correct. Yeah, Atlantic white cedars, they'll come in pots ready to go.
Okay.
So what we'll do, the plan is to put these in an organized way with protection around them once they're seedlings. And I'm nominating, and we can all talk about this, there is a large-sized area of the Smith-Nowazowski property, which is up far back from the road, used to be used for growing corn. The former owner used to rent it out to C.M. Smith Farm for growing corn. Those days are over. And an appropriate section with appropriate spacing, that's where we think we would like to start our American chestnut orchard.
And that's where their final place.
That's where they will be growing in the ground, not in a pot. So
We have to locate them to the association, right?
yes, they keep talking about an orchard. Well, we're thinking, how about putting them in the woods? Well, this could be both. If we ever miss a chance to harvest seeds, there's plenty of squirrels and deer and stuff right around, they'll get the seeds. But what we may want to do is, going forward, let's say in a couple of years, it might not be us, but someone will be managing it, collect seeds and start more seedlings and just be our own Johnny Appleseed or Johnny Chestnut seed. Frank knew I was going to say that. So we're getting there on all the tree stuff. I don't know that I have anything new about open space acquisition unless, Dave, unless you think there ought to be a new thing about open space acquisition, like the dam, the West Washington Street, or is that premature to bring that up?
No, what happened there?
Okay. You had a discussion with one of your volunteers out of the Plymouth Brook project.
Yeah.
This person is actually currently a sitting member of the Hanson Housing Authority. Housing Authority has jurisdiction over 27,000 square feet on the other side of West Washington Street. We're right where the brook comes under the bridge.
Dam was, right?
And it's right where the dam was for the sawmill. And in fact, when the dam washed out, they probably stopped paying taxes on it. Our theory is that the town got that from non-payment of taxes decades and decades ago. And someone, looking at a map, said, why not make that housing authority land? Well, try building houses or any sort of anything with a river running through it,
It's running pretty good right now.
subject to floods.
Yes.
And of the 27,000 square feet, about like 8,000 square feet is open water. And
Just to put it in context, this member of the housing authority approached me about it. I didn't bring it up. He's the one who asked how we could get housing to give it to conservation. So I've been in touch with him since, Phil.
okay,
And I'm supposed to try to get together on this weekend to go over.
so we think we might want to put together a well-reasoned approach to that. it may be there's another piece of town-owned land that the housing authority doesn't have, that they could have. So in exchange for, let's say, 27,000 square feet of housing authority land going to conservation, another, let's say, 30,000 square feet of town-owned land could go to the housing authority. Let's say, just for example, they might want to put a duplex Habitat for Humanity project on Pierce Avenue between our new parking lot and the house next door, because there's like 250 feet of frontage there. So, it's just an idea. So we'll be talking about that.
I assume that's the sort of thing that needs a town meeting.
Oh, yeah, it would need definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But we need to
If we're lucky,
sort of,
the ball rolling.
sort of
Minimum.
preview the philosophy of doing that sort of thing and run it by a lot of people.
Yeah. So anyway, some exciting news on
Anything else besides that, on that, before we go to
No.
signing invoices?
Oh, we have a little more,
Oh, we do have a little more here. And Frank may have something, I don't know.
yeah.
Sorry. So many of these we got.
That's just
We passed these down?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, here.
Plymouth County letter. This is, email.
1, 2, 3, 4. What we have here is, today, this morning, Lisa Green sent an email to me and to Frank about mosquito control. She had received from the superintendent of the Phillips County Mosquito Control Project a follow-up. They are seeking from the town of Hanson, let me find the right wording here, grant permission for their project to fly over the town to apply mosquito larvicide to wetlands by aircraft between April and October of this year. Lisa said, "Jen, greetings. I am going to defer to you on the area of mosquito control. Please see the email below. I'm certainly happy to generate the letter. However, look forward to input first." We know this is a classic, call it conflicting interest thing here, where no one likes to get bit by mosquitoes, especially if they have triple E or any of the other things that mosquitoes carry. However, no one who keeps bees likes mosquito control to spray their property.
There was one of the MACC programs on this very thing.
And what was their advice?
They're very, very much against aerial spraying. First of all, according to them, it kills virtually none of the mosquitoes that carry the disease. And it kills a lot of other stuff. So, I can try to dig up whatever actual
Let's do this, both through your efforts and parallel efforts, and you can send me a note to do this. Do whatever it takes to get our hands on the MACC advice.
Yeah.
Because that's based on science.
Oh, yeah, they had all the facts and figures.
As opposed to, let's say, potentially the emotion of public concern. When you are in an airplane and you fly over town at 140 miles an hour, you're going to miss a lot of mosquitoes, and if you don't get them all, you're not going to prevent bites.
They made
It
a
will
rather
happen.
compelling case, actually.
The prevention of mosquito bites happens at a personal level. Where you go, whether you wear long sleeves, what bug spray you wear, timing, etc.
Right.
But all the insect-eating birds and the things that the insects do themselves, pollination and other environmental procedures, are harmed by aerial spraying. So we need to put something together. It may be that by our very next meeting, no, let me say this. I think Lisa wants an answer before our next meeting.
Well, I'll contact MACC. They're gonna send out the PowerPoints from everybody who took the courses.
Okay?
But I'll call them tomorrow and
Okay.
see if I can get that one up.
Yeah. I don't know, the other four commissioners here have opinions about that.
I mean, I feel like you do, that nothing you spray is gonna just hit a mosquito and kill just the mosquito. It's gonna kill everything, you know, bees and anything else that we don't want to kill.
Other helpful.
And I'm
Beneficial.
against it personally.
TJ,
But I-
feelings, thoughts, questions?
I'm certainly not an expert in any element of this, but it doesn't pass the smell test.
It's sort of like the 1930s or 40s version of of how to interact with insects.
It's like nuking an ant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm thinking Agent Orange. but what you
It's when you, the decades since DDT was invented have proven a lot of things, including why not Sharon, your thought?
All I can say is the aerial spray, and wonder how much good it does. And, of course, there's several people have noticed the signs around town about, we have bees, no spraying here, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
And thirdly, it's just a personal thing, I had one on Saturday in, and see a plane so close to your house that you could read the call numbers on it, going back and forth over the swamp to make sure they got the whole thing. I think that's a scary form, aerial spray, it really is.
Well, I'll get a hold of MACC and see if I can get all that information from them. If we can get it, that's basically all we need, because.
Maybe we should have a motion and a second and a vote to, with support from MACC, guidelines, to respectfully, refuse permission to the Plymouth County Mosquito Control for aerial spraying. Would anyone care to make a motion like that?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion? Hearing anything further? Let's move to the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? I think we have a unanimous vote. Thank you. This gives us, a pathway to get to an answer for Lisa.
Yeah.
How does that sound, Frank? He's nodding. Anything else? Okay. Oh, we did receive, on March 9th, a report, the peer review for evaluating the delineated wetlands on the, County Road project. One of us here may wish to recuse himself from anything to do with this discussion. But what it says here is, Mr. Thompson, reviewed all the wetland flags, as listed here, in a lot of Series A and B and C. It says generally, the delineation was accurate. 3 wetland flags were moved and 2 potential vernal pools were identified. 3 flags were moved upslope, 15 feet, 20 feet, and 15 feet more. Our agent is going to look and see if that would cause any potential impact to the project as designed. It's not, okay.
How about the vernal pool?
Now, the new information is
On
there
a
is.
strictly procedural note, there's an open hearing regarding this. You're supposed to be discussing this outside of the hearing.
Good point.
Good point. We are duly noting, just for our awareness, that something we said we would do during the hearing has been accomplished, and we are going to have it available when the hearing continues. Let's say this. It could be, and this is new information to me, it could be that we should wait for the hearing to recommence before we discuss what to do with the vernal pool information. But for our awareness, we know there are 2 potential vernal pools on the property. It seems to me the cautious thing, I appreciate that good point, the cautious thing is to not have any definitive discussion until we're back in the open hearing. On the other hand, new information about flag locations and other things, it's something for us to consider on our own individually rather than to deliberate on, I think. So, we'll do that.
Good.
Final thing, property management, I think this calls for property/trail management. The Bay Circle Trail in Hanson crosses probably a mile or even a little bit more than a mile of the Barge Pond Wildlife Management Area. The state has for several years required or intended to require that long-distance trails like that, in order to be allowed by them, be licensed. They have problems with every time they can hire making their own trails, and they don't want that, that's all prohibited, but they would permit the trail to be there with this license. We had a very useful, Zoom call a couple days ago. Dave and I sat in on it, and, with Jason Zimmer, who's the Southeast Mass District, and other people with AMC and other trail, segments on other wildlife areas. There is going to be one license issued, by the, state authorities for the Bay Circuit Trail across 3 different wildlife management areas, here, the Hockomock, and also one further away. But there will also have to be site walks and evaluations of where the trail is as part of that process. And so Dave and I have talked, and I think others have talked about how the trail needs work. We don't know quite whose work it's supposed to be. Is it our work? Is it the state's work? Is it AMC's work? But this whole licensing process, like most paperwork, is much more complicated and time-consuming than we ever would have thought, but it's also necessary. And it was a cordial meeting, and it was useful, and stay tuned. Anything else? I think we are complete. We are done with our agenda, and, is there a voucher here to sign?
Yeah, just one,
Just one?
I'm not doing this here, right? See if I can check the, this is a bulk invoice, we can hold it.
Let's keep holding that. So this voucher is for other purposes,
I
right?
didn't get the public hearing notice
Meeting.
invoices yet, so.
Okay. We will be signing this voucher, and then, as it goes down the table, I'll be interested in hearing a motion to adjourn.
Did you put mine together, or is that from April?
April, that one's on Frank.
Couple of,
We're listening, sir.
couple of meetings ago, TJ asked about, you asked about, conservation properties, whether they had deeds. So I did that study, and I found that 41 have deeds naming conservation, 42 don't.
3 pieces of property,
And 4 are questionable.
87 pieces of property.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do we have, maybe this is a dumb question, do we have 87 distinct pieces of property, or do we have 87 different deeded pieces of property? Like is Smith Nowazowski one deed?
Smith Nowazowski is one deed, but we don't own the deed.
One of those problems.
I mean,
We don't own the deed for Webster Billings. We don't own the deed for Thomas Mill.
We didn't clear up Smith Nowazowski and Webster Billings to prevent towns on.
We don't
Webster
own,
Billings will never.
we don't own the deed for the Little Cedar Swamp that we just got from town meeting, which is maybe 85 acres.
So what recourse exists for the commission to get our beloved town council off the dime?
Each deed has its own story. I don't have the answer to that right now. I just feel
Well,
that,
in a way, it has its own story, but every single one of these properties is without a doubt owned by the town of Hanson. So it would really only take one deed listing all of these properties to put them in care and custody.
So back to TJ's.
and that's a very appealing thought. And if we were, let me not be gloom and doom as I was 30 seconds ago. If we were to thoughtfully assemble the content of such a proposed deed and put it before them, they would need to take action. And what it would take to make them take that action, relentless, continuous pressure for however many months or years it takes. It is simply one thing to do. If we put together a simple draft content,
You're saying we would put
hand
together the legalese of a deed, or, I mean, like, not a deed that says, okay, it starts at this point, it goes
No, no.
westerly, this direction, and all that deed type work.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I mean,
There-
a deed for a piece of property says, you know, like my property says it starts at this location and it goes 150 feet to, you know, this location, and like you have to denote the corners in the deed. But then there are deeds that are not that. That deed.
I have a deed for 7 properties that was
I just
executed,
copy that.
by the Board of Selectmen some years ago for those 7 properties. And I don't believe it lays them out. I believe it refers to previous deeds.
In other words, we may be able to include the property description, including corners, meets, and bounds, by reference to the preceding
Right,
document.
you might be able to reference
Well, by like
page,
page number.
you know, book number, page number,
Right.
from the county registry.
And one thing I must hasten to add, one thing we do not have to fear is Smith Nowazowski being sold, because the state of Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game holds a CR on that entire property. It is considered a de facto part of the Barge Pond Wildlife Management Area. They paid the town of Hanson $250,000 for that CR back about 15 years ago.
There are, without a doubt, some restrictions on some of these properties.
How about what's the going?
Webster Billings
Different.
does not have one.
That's a.
That property was taken by eminent domain in 1975 and deeded to the town of Hanson through the select board.
That means they can
And that's
sell.
the only deed that exists.
Right, so we need to get that one fixed.
The only reason that it's called conservation land is because the assessors make that note on their card. Town meeting said this goes to conservation.
Although the minutes of that town meeting, minutes are very clear. The will of the people is made clear, but until you have the deed that says that it's recorded, not
Well,
necessarily.
as the Melody Lindsay case proved,
Yes.
the select board has to execute what the town meeting votes. And if they don't execute, then it didn't happen.
So Phil, you missed a bunch of pages signed.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'm nearing the end of my energy rope here. Thank you.
To me, that's a high priority project.
So, logistically speaking, what can we do to move this project in the direction we need to go? Using the word
We can approach town council ourselves, which Ms. Green has suggested we do. I don't like that approach myself because I believe that approaches to town council should go through one place. But if it comes to that, I could certainly write a letter to the town council and say, we want you to prepare a deed for execution by the Board of Selectmen.
Why don't we just do that, Frank? We don't have anything to lose, right?
No,
May I suggest that,
other than they say no, and we're,
But if they say no, then we have that to go to Lisa with and
they said no.
say, he said no, back to,
do you think she's gonna act on that?
well,
She works for the town. There could be a lot of, and we could invoke assistance maybe from the Board of Selectmen to negotiate responsible, if it came to that. Rather than worry about that right now, my suggestion is, to the extent that the hours of the agent and staff allow, to, as expeditiously as possible, assemble a list, a descriptive list of the properties that are not yet secured in terms of the deed. And we utilize that to craft a request, such as we're describing. This is just my suggestion. I'm not looking for votes and things tonight, but I don't know what else to do.
I don't either.
None of us have access to as ready access to the files as the staff does. but we hear the issue, it's, I don't know what to compare it to. It's something that's so important. You could say, drop everything else and do just that. Well, we can't drop the things that we're doing right now. So we certainly can support this, I think, making this master list. Thoughts?
Yeah, can't figure everything else either.
I think realistically, we're gonna have to break it up in a couple different parts, right? Because there's properties that have been voted by town meetings to be put into conservation, but are not. And then it sounds like Webster Billings doesn't even necessarily have that going for it, but it's just, it's under our care, but it's not.
Wasn't that a,
When,
I was at that town meeting.
when, I
voted
was
for it.
there too, when the Hodder property was taken by eminent domain, the town meeting voted to take it for conservation. The words are in there,
Designated.
So,
but the deed doesn't say that.
The town meeting action has the words, the deed doesn't have all the words.
Right.
Correct.
And the same thing applies to the sleeper property, for example. We have no deed for the sleeper property. But it was clearly taken for conservation because we had a land grant for it. And it has a CR on it that would tell you, you ain't gonna sell this ever.
well, not only that, it was at the bequest of the former owner.
It might come down to this, to TJ's point, there's a modest subset of all these things where, regardless of what the deeds say or don't say, there is a conservation restriction held by an outside entity that's a legal document and would protect it. So there may be a reason to treat that list of things a little bit differently, or maybe with slightly different language than the others. But what you indicate is there may be categories on this list that would call for different treatment.
So what I'm foreseeing here as a possibility is that there are properties on which town meeting has already spoken. And therefore, we could go to the select board and say, tell town council, insert your preferred phrase here, but we need.
Put together the deed.
Yeah.
Make the deed.
Fisher cut
So
bait,
that,
do the deed.
so that we can sign it.
And then there are probably in 47 questionable or undeeded properties, some that are going to have to go before town meeting before we can get that.
Right.
No.
Well,
You throw out that number arbitrarily.
you already have the list, Frank, right?
Frank had 43 properties that we don't have and 4 that are questionable.
We have-
47 been voted on by town meeting previously?
I would say that most of them were, there may be 1 or 2 or 3 that weren't from town meeting, but most of them were voted.
By the way, one thing I have done, and this goes back a number of years, I went through all the town reports, like from 1970 on, and read the results of all the town meetings. And whenever there's an article voting to take land for conservation, I made a note of that. Who and why, and that's the sort of thing that builds the list we're talking about. There's probably gonna be like 50 or 60
Pass
town
that
meetings.
down to TJ. Take that home with you.
Okay.
Look at it.
Let me do something useful.
Yeah, there it is,
I
there's
can't
the
be
town
any
meeting reference right there, yeah.
While you're up the hallway.
Amen to that. Thank you for bringing that up. And
Yeah, I think that's very important.
it seems like we have a consensus, and maybe I'd invite TJ to really digest that and then get back in touch with the office. But this person right here would be more than happy to observe some staff time going into that for the next period of time, whatever it takes, to put together a list. Maybe by the fall of this year, the fall town meeting, we can have put the ball in other people's courts for that.
Let's put it on the agenda. Put it on the reminder.
Yeah. I would say for the next agenda, we will have an item that says, conservation property status, properties, plural. Any further items? If not,
I would move it.
moved and seconded at 9:20 PM to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained adjourned.